Hi there. My name's Daniel James Drake. I'm a pancake artist with the company Dancakes, and this is the Joy of Pancakes. In the Joy of Pancakes, we like to try and make pancake art something that's accessible for everyone. You don't have to have an art degree to be able to have a lot of fun doing pancake art. We always like to tell people who follow along with us that mistakes are delicious. No matter how beautiful or accurate or correct you think your pancake art is, it's going to taste just as good as one of the pancakes I make here in our studio. Now, on today's episode, I wanted to do something a little bit different. The last few episodes I've done a freestyle design where I've taken my selection of colors in front of me and taken a prompt, a landscape, space plants, something like that, and drawn something from my imagination. But on this episode, I'm going to be using a reference. Now, this might make it a little bit more challenging to follow along. Trying to draw a picture perfectly can be a little bit more tedious than trying to draw something from your imagination, but you'll still learn a lot if you give it your best. So don't worry too much about perfection, and just have fun with it. So in this episode of The Joy of Pancakes, I'm actually going to be drawing a portrait of the man who inspired this show, Bob Ross. Now I've got an image of Bob Ross pulled up on my phone right here. Got a little stand so I can see this picture nice and bright. I can zoom in if I need to, anything like that. Now I'm going to do my best to draw this portrait with the colors I have at my disposal here. These are the same colors that we used in the last couple Joy of Pancakes episodes, and we will run the ratios of gel color to pancake batter that we used on the bottom of the screen here, just like Bob Ross did on his show. Now before I get started cooking, I'm going to heat my griddle up for about 30 seconds or so. I'm going to turn it to the cook setting for about 30 seconds just to give it a little residual heat. I personally like to draw with a little heat in the griddle because it sets the lines as I draw them. I don't want it to get too hot. I don't want them to cook all the way through. But I like having those lines set. So once there's a little heat, I can turn that griddle back off. Now that is going to be warm enough to hurt me if I keep my hand rested on that. So I'm going to take this towel I've got doubled over. I'm going to set it on the griddle just like that. And I'm going to use it to rest my hand while I draw. It's going to give me the control from that stability without burning the side of my hand on the griddle there. So, now, a lot of times, I tell folks that when I'm teaching them pancake art, I start by making myself a coloring book. You can do the same thing if you're going to draw a portrait of somebody, where you're really just going to outline the major shapes and give yourself a coloring book, and then you can go back through with all these beautiful colors and color it in with whatever color you happen to need. Now with a portrait, I always start on the eyes, because the eyes are the most important part of capturing a person's essence. And Bob had a very distinctive look, very happy man, very happy eyes. Trick from me, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on his face here, so I got a little bit more detail to work with. I'm going to start on this eye, move to that eye, and sort of build his face outwards. Like I said, this is a little bit more of a challenging one, so if you don't feel like you can follow along as well, or if you want to practice a little bit more before you give it a shot, that's okay. Always just remember, mistakes are delicious, and the longer you stay with something, the better you'll get. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my black pancake batter. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of air out. This is called squeeze control. This makes sure that there's some suction in the bottle so that when I turn it upside down, it doesn't pour everywhere. I can actually gently release that to make sure that I have some control over my line work. That's one of the things that really takes your art to the next level. When you get good at squeeze control, you'll be able to draw lines with confidence, taper them to points. It's much, much more fun that way. It takes some practice though, so squeeze control. Squeeze that bottle, and I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to start. I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to do one eye at a time. Let's see. Bob Ross's eye. He's got... everybody's eye kind of has like an arch shape. Comes up like that. Do that top eyelid first. And then after I've done the eyelid, I'll come back and I'll outline the pupil. Kind of an oval shape, flat on the bottom, because he's smiling. When we smile, our cheeks come up and our lower eyelids kind of cover the round edge of our pupil, so it flattens the shape a little bit. outline the rest of his eye there. Draw the rest of the shape. Cool. He's got a little bit of his eyelid comes up there. It's another line. And little crow's feet. Crow's feet because he smiled a lot. Rest in peace, Bob Ross. Alright, let's see if we got his eyebrow here. Fuzz, a little jagged there to imply the fuzz. That's kind of an oval shape that tapers into that jagged fuzziness. Do a little line here. One of the things that you start to learn as you get better at drawing is the difference between hard lines and soft lines. You learn that some facial features, some certain wrinkles, crow's feet, things like that, it makes sense to illustrate those with black. But some things it doesn't. Some things it makes more sense to illustrate with a brown or a tan or something like that. So even, I'll tell you, even if you're not experienced at drawing portraits, I think it's worthwhile to give it a shot, because that's how you get good at them. In fact, I started drawing portraits mostly because when I first started doing pancake art at parties and events, I didn't really know how to do portraits. I'd never taken any art classes, but it was one of the things folks asked for the most. They wanted me to draw their face. They wanted me to draw their loved ones, or their kids, things like that. And my attitude was always that, well, I don't really know how to do it, but I figure I can try anything, and if it doesn't turn out right, well, it's pancake. That's where the mistakes are delicious slogan really started to come from, was trying to draw portraits. So I guess it's fitting that I should give Bob Ross's face a try on this. I'm telling you all to follow along, mistakes are delicious. Come down here to Bob's nostril. He has very big smile lines. He was a very happy man, like I said. Smiled a lot. Brought a lot of happiness and relaxation to the world. I hope I can do the same. You'll see that I'm kind of outlining his mustache here, just doing some jagged lines to sort of imply that bushy mustache. And let's see. He's got his lips like that. There's a little bit of a peak right there. Color in the corners of the mouth right there. Let's take a little bit of a line here. I'm going to draw the edge of his lower lip there. And now let's keep outlining that facial hair. One thing that I've learned from all my years of doing pancake portraits of people is that when somebody has a lot of facial hair, can be a little bit easier to draw because facial hair it's loose. It's not a bunch of very distinct, firm lines or squiggles. So Bob's got a nice full beard, full goatee here. There's a lot of gray in there, but we'll come back and we'll color that in. There's lots of these little squiggly lines. Lots of these implications of hair. You just kind of imply the hair. Now you'll notice that when people have big full beards, there is really no distinction between their hairline and their beard line. So I'm actually going to come all the way up to his eyes over here and kind of try to illustrate this happy curved cheek of his over here. He's got a pretty deep dimple too. Very happy man. I remember my grandma Shirley. I would go and I would spend weekends at my grandma Shirley's house when she still lived around me, still lived in St. Louis. And every now and then I'd walk into the living room and I'd see Bob Ross on the TV. Didn't really. I guess when I was a kid, I didn't really think much of it. You know, I never really minded what being on. You know, it's always very soothing, very relaxing, and fascinating to watch. Fascinating to watch somebody do something and see it come together, you know? Something that you don't really do, or how the meat is made. Except with something beautiful like painting. Come up, do that ear. Look at all that scruff. Just write a line like that. Like that for his neck. And that's where we're going to cut it off right there at his show collar. I think that's a good. It's a good place. That's as good a place as any to call the edge of our pancake. Now we're going to use a lot of batter on this hair of his. A lot of loop-de-loop. It's time to start coloring it in. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my white pancake batter. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a glint. I'm going to put a glint in each one of his pupils. It's an important little part of the process. It's amazing what that little dot of light does for an eyeball. Now I'm going to be using some fun colors to color Bob in. But I'm going to highlight a couple spots here. Bridge of his nose. And once I've got my shapes down, I really don't worry too much about sticking to the reference. And dots for those pupils. I believe Bob had brown eyes. So we're going to give him some nice. I'm actually going to do a little glint orange in there. Believe it or not, orange and brown are very similar colors. So sometimes just a little bit of orange in somebody's brown eyes just makes them a little bit more vibrant. Now, the whites of his eyes are actually in a fair bit of shadow in my reference. So I'm actually going to use gray and a little bit of blue. Or I guess that's my indigo. I'm going to go back over these white highlights with my plain batter. A little bit of plain batter here. All right. I don't really know how this will turn out, but I'm going to use my gray here as my shading color. So that means I'm going to come through the spots where it seems like the darkest colors show up. The light plays off of the side there. I'm going to do what I can. You know? Like I always say, worst that'll happen is you've got a pancake that you'll have to eat. So we're going to use the indigo as our second darkest shade. Build out those shaded parts here on the gray spots. You get a feel for it. You get a feel for it eventually. All right. And now I'm going to take my light blue. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in all the spots. We have fun here. Okay. Let's go back to his teeth real quick. I'm just going to go ahead. Use my plain batter to fill that whole zone in. It's not going to be perfect, but you'll get the picture. Okay. Now we're going to use these colors. First off, for the gray in his goatee, I'm going to use this purple for that. Now I still want to keep that contrast. Even if I'm playing around with the colors, I still want to try and get the contrast right. Which is to say, Bob has pretty dark hair. So I don't want to go too crazy here and fill the whole thing in with yellow or red or orange. Really, I'm just adding these as accent colors to sort of give a different kind of life, a different vibe to the colors that I'm going to fill the rest of his hair in with, the dark browns and the blacks. And as I work inwards, I'm going to slightly change the hue of the texture. So rather than adding yellow texture, I'll add orange texture. And then after that, I'll do a little red. And we'll see how it looks, you know? We'll see. I like how this is coming together. Switch to my red. I'm actually just going to go ahead and cut through a lot of that. See if I can get some interesting mixtures in there. Just go ahead and scrape right on through all that. Okay. I am really actually kind of excited to see how this turns out. Let's put these back in order. Keep a clean workspace. Okay. How about... Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some browns here on the outskirts and then try and work my way down into a black. So, and then we're going to come through after we've done all that. We're going to get our black. Real quick, before I do that, I'm going to fill in this bottom lip has some red and some tan. There we go. Now there's certain spots. Just kind of going crazy here. Big sections of his hair are black. Kind of dark enough to be that, but I want to take the edges of that big zone and kind of get them all curly and weird like the rest of it was. Chaos is satisfying. I think it works. Just go through the rest of that. Fill it all in with dark brown. You know, I didn't get a chance to use any green in this pancake just yet. So I think it might be a great time to give him a nice brightly colored shirt here. Just so we have an excuse to use every color in the rainbow. This was a fun one. Okay, so we've got our design basically all drawn and colored in. Last step. So I'm going to take my fill bottle, take the lid off, and I'm going to border the whole pancake. Just going to give it a bit of a background, and it's going to hold the whole thing together a little bit. Then I'm going to go all across the back with zigzags. I'm just going to give it a little bit more body and make sure I didn't miss any spots. And then I'll turn the griddle on and we can cook this pancake through. There we go. Very satisfying. Just kind of let that batter connect as it will. Come over here. This is a big one. It's because of all that hair. You know, I heard that when Bob first started doing the perm, he didn't really like it, but the show was so successful that he had to keep it. I think that's cute. Turn that griddle on to about 225 degrees. We don't want to cook it too hot or else we'll lose all those beautiful colors. And while that cooks, I'll clean up my workspace. All right. Now, while I wait for that to cook, I just want to thank you all for watching this episode of the Joy of Pancakes. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that if you followed along at home, you were able to make something you were happy with. And I really appreciate you being around to help share the Joy of Pancakes with me. We here at Dancakes have been doing our best to pivot our business from an events company to content like this. Sharing, teaching, classes, that sort of thing. And so it is a privilege to be able to come into our studio and film something like this and share it with the world. So thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, if you have any ideas about the kind of designs you'd like to see us do on the Joy of Pancakes in the future, we want to hear those. And we'd love to see your work too. So if you try this at home and you post this to your social media with the hashtag Dancakes, hashtag Pancake Art, you can tag our company at Dr. Dancake. Now this pancake's almost done cooking. You can tell because the bubbles have appeared all across the back of it and the pancake looks less wet. You can really hear it cooking there, can't you? So once it gets to this point, I'm going to do what we call carving. I'm going to take my spatula, I'm going to take that firm flat edge, and I'm going to gently work my way underneath, easing my way around the edges of this pancake until I can get to the center. Once that pancake moves, it is carved. It's released from the griddle, and that means that it's about ready to flip. Now, I don't want to force this. I like to say that the pancake will tell you when it's ready. I'm just sort of gently coaxing it, gently suggesting to it, hey buddy, you ready to flip? You ready to face the world? Ready to show them how you look? There we go, just like that. Now once your pancake's carved, you can turn your griddle off. It'll still hold enough heat to cook the other side once you flip it, but that way it starts to cool off for your next design. So, all right, y'all. This one's about ready. Are you ready? Here I go. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm pretty happy with that. Bob Ross pancake art. That actually turned out a little better than I expected. Cool. That's my favorite part. That's my favorite part. I don't know what it's gonna look like either. That's why I love what I do. All right, I'm gonna go grab a plate. And that is the joy of pancakes. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Remember, mistakes are delicious. See you around.